We're still waiting to hear from Aaron Rodgers on whether he intends to play in 2025. The Jets have informed him that if he does, it won't be for them. So he has some decisions to make and maybe a market to assess. You know, you'll look at teams that think they're a quarterback away from a championship like the Jets thought 2 years ago. Is that someone like a Pittsburgh Steelers? Is that someone like an Indianapolis Colts? Is it someone like a Los Angeles Rams if Matthew Stafford is unable to reach agreement with them on a contract? So if Aaron wants to play, we'll see who ends up being interested.
Look, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, he's a 41-year-old quarterback who's 2 years removed from an Achilles injury. And so I don't know that the market is going to be that strong. And Grouse is exactly right. There will be potential suitors, but I think it's going to be after the dust settles. It's going to be after some of these other guys kind of figure out where they are. So, the musical chairs at quarterback, it's going to happen. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers' role to sit, wait, and then assess it afterwards to figure out the landing spot.
Justin Fields, one of the two Pittsburgh quarterbacks, along with Russell Wilson, that'll hit free agency this offseason. Fields is a guy that the Steelers coaching staff really liked when he started the first 6 games for them last year. They moved to Wilson thinking it would elevate the ceiling. And, of course, they made the playoffs but lost in the first round, so they have a decision to make. There's some support in that building for the idea of bringing back Justin Fields, but it's also possible they look at external options, and that means he would have to do the same.
Yeah, I think an external option is a better option because Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, that experiment did not work last season. And so I think the best opportunity for Justin Fields is to go to a place like New York where he has an opportunity to, yes, compete for a starting spot, but also with a really good defense. I think that if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I've already seen what I've seen with Justin Fields. Let me go and get an external candidate. Maybe it's a guy like Matthew Stafford via trade, but I think that Justin Fields needs to have a new opportunity in a new city.
We talked about Sam Darnold earlier in the show. Interesting to see what the Vikings do with him. Vikings made an interesting procedural move just a few minutes ago. They pushed back the void date on cornerback Byron Murphy's contract. It was supposed to void 23 days before the start of the league year, which is right around now. Now it doesn't void until right before the start of the league year. This is interesting because it means they cannot franchise Byron Murphy, and the fact they did not do the same thing with Darnold's contract means they still can franchise Sam Darnold.
And Sam Darnold is just 27 years old. I think the Vikings would be wise to build around Sam Darnold, no matter what you thought of J.J. McCarthy. And clearly they loved him. They drafted him super high. You still don't know if someone can play until they actually do it. And I think with Sam Darnold, he can be the future there. We're not talking about a 34-year-old quarterback. We're talking about a young quarterback that came into the league before he was old enough to buy a beer. Like, the reality is, he's still an ascending player. He fits in what they're doing there in Minnesota. He can play well in that system with that supporting cast. Like, I think you take what you know will work in Minnesota. Plus, Darnold also knows that he can't go back to the Jets. There are some teams that he's just not a fit for that are quarterback needy, and I think that will also work in the Vikings' favor.
Yeah, people do forget. It feels like he's been around forever, just how young Sam Darnold is. But then again, he played so well, but we had those really ugly losses at the end of the season to the Lions and the Rams. Sam, do you agree about going all in on Sam Darnold, like Tim says?
I don't. No, I don't agree on going all in on Sam Darnold. And that's not a knock on Sam Darnold. It's just the fact that you have J.J. McCarthy on your roster, J.J. McCarthy, first-round pick, who you were excited about going into last season before the injury. All of a sudden, now J.J. McCarthy had an opportunity to watch a pro's pro, to watch Sam Darnold have an outstanding career. And so Tim made a great point. You don't know what you have in Sam and J.J. McCarthy, and you won't know if you don't give him an opportunity. He had a chance to sit and to watch as a rookie, to understand what it's like to play a 17-game, 18-week season, to watch it from afar. Now give him an opportunity on a rookie contract to go and take you over the top and show what he can do. Sam Darnold was great, earned himself a great contract, but I think to give him a big-time payday here in Minnesota is going to keep you from seeing what you have in J.J. McCarthy.
I think the money thing is the key point, Sam, because what you do know that you have in J.J. McCarthy is a guy who's cheap. His cap numbers over the next 3 years are going to be $5, $6, $7 million. And the Vikings have built their roster kind of thinking about that. Imagine they're paying Justin Jefferson more money than any other wide receiver in the league makes. You don't necessarily do that if you're also anticipating paying a quarterback at or near the top of the market. So J.J. McCarthy is likely the long-term plan for Minnesota. It's just a question of whether they want to let Darnold leave without getting anything in return, or whether they're able to keep him on a short-term situation while J.J. McCarthy recovers from his injury.
Yeah, almost as a bridge quarterback. You're right, Graz. That is the beauty of having a young quarterback on your roster. That Vikings offense, only 18 points total in those last 2 games of the season. All right, coming up.
Thinking about the future, but stuff like this takes you back and helps you live in the moment.
What an epic scene at that parade on Friday. The Super Bowl champs, they also have some notable free agents this offseason, especially on defense. The longest tenured Eagle, Brandon Graham, set for free agency, along with linebackers Josh Sweat and Zach Bond. Sweat tallying 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl. Bond was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. Milton Williams, Mekhi Becton, who was a great pickup also. They are free agents, both instrumental in the playoff run. So let's get back to the fellows. Graz, what can you tell us about the Eagles and the free agents that they plan to prioritize this offseason?
Yeah, look, a lot comes down to what these guys are looking for. But Zach Bond, the linebacker they plucked off the Saints practice squad last year for $3.5 million, will be looking for a big payday. That's not a position where guys tend to break the bank, so you got to figure that might be a deal that the Eagles believe that they can work out. Milton Williams and Josh Sweat on the defensive line are 2 guys that they would probably like to have back, but it's possible that they won't be able to afford them given what they'll command on the free agent market. That's why they've been drafting a lot of guys at those positions the last couple of years in the draft. And then you saw Mekhi Becton on the offensive line is another guy, much like Bond, that they got on the cheap and probably will cost more. So it remains to be seen whether they can afford to bring him back or if they have to go find next year's Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, when I think about what's most important, I think keeping Mekhi Becton is most important because of what they do on the offensive side of the ball. But now when it comes to the defense, you cannot keep everybody, right? And so, okay, Mekhi Becton I think is a priority. When it comes to Josh Sweat, okay, you want to try and get him, but they're edge rushers in the draft. Then I go to Zach Bond. Zach Bond had an outstanding year, but you got him for $3.5 million. He's going to command, 14, 15. Highest paid inside linebackers are $20 million. I don't think it's worth paying him that money right now. It's actually better to use Vic Fangio, your defensive coordinator, and go with a guy like Nakobe Dean, already on your roster, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., already on your roster, and then use that capital, that money, for some other pieces. So for me, I think Zach Bond actually won, right? Think about it this way. It was a prove-it deal, and he proved it. But that proof doesn't mean that the Eagles can afford to keep him for $15, $18, $20 million a year.
Yeah, other changes on the horizon, and that would be on their coaching staff. And we know Kellen Moore has gone. Also, one of the assistants has gone with him. So we were counting, Tim, offensive coordinators that Jalen Hurts has had, play callers, since he's been in the NFL, 6. This is going to be his 6th different play caller. How big of a deal is this?
It's a really big deal. And Hannah, I think, it goes to show you how impressive what Jalen Hurts has accomplished considering that number. Like that's not easy. Typically, consistency is usually what's helps breed quarterback success. So I would say, look, it's a big deal. What they did this year with 2 new coordinators, I would say, is somewhat remarkable. So